Hi guys, so today I have stepped back into the world of classical Greek myths and legends to bring you a video on names of nymphs. Nymphs were young maidens in mythology who usually had something to do with nature or the natural world. And so these are some names of nymphs that I found intriguing. Some of these names are quite unique and would make great choices for parents who are looking for a name that is off the beaten path, or maybe looking for a middle name that is really different and interesting to go with a more common or classic first name. So the first nymph name I have is Calliope. Calliope means beautiful voice, and I think that the meaning fits the name so well because when you say Calliope, it sounds beautiful. It sounds like music almost. In mythology, Calliope was one of the 9 Muses and the goddess of epic poetry. So if you are a poet or you want to honor someone who is a poet or loves poetry, I think Calliope would be a very, very beautiful way to do that. The next name is very spunky and quite out there, and that is Terpsichore. Terpsichore means delight in dancing, and she was one of the Muses as well, and the goddess of dance. And this would be a very, very cool way to pass on your love of dancing to a daughter if you are brave enough to use this name. Then I have Anthe or Xanthi. This name has been on my personal favorites list for a very long time. It means violet or violet flower, and in Greek mythology she was an ocean nymph. I think this name would be a really spunky way to honor someone named either Ian or Violet, and of course my father's name is Ian, which is one of the reasons that I love it so much, because it could honor him. The next name I have is Cleodora. Cleodora means gift of glory, and in mythology she was the nymph of Mount Parnassus. Cleodora can of course give you the nicknames Cleo or Dora, so you get either of those really, really cute nicknames. I think it is kind of spunky and fun and different, and if you are a nickname lover, this is definitely one to consider. The next name is one of the more recognizable names on this list. It has been used in English-speaking countries before. It's more accessible to English speakers because we recognize it, and that is Daphne. Daphne means laurel in Greek, and she was a nymph who was turned into a laurel tree. I think this name would be a really, really interesting way to honor someone named Laura, Lauren, or Laurel, and I'm pretty sure almost all of us know someone with at least one of those names. One of my very dear friends is named Laura, and I could use this name to potentially honor her. I think it is such a sweet and spunky name, Daphne. The next nymph name I have is Callie. Callie means beautiful and holy, which I think is a wonderful, wonderful meaning. And in mythology, she was a naiad of the Nile River in Egypt, and she was one of the daughters of the river god Nilus. I love Callie, and then you can get the nickname Callie to make it a little bit more user-friendly. The next name might be one of my favorites on this list because not only is it a name from Greek mythology, but it has also worked its way into the English language and become an English word name, and that is Echo. Echo means sound in Greek. I actually took a class on Greek and Latin influence in the English language, so I know that quite a few words from Greek and Latin have made their way into English, and this is one of them. Echo was a nymph who could only repeat what others said, and so there you have the origin of the English word echo. I think this would make a very, very interesting word name choice. The next name I have is Kantha. Kantha has kind of a strong sound to it, but it's still very beautiful. It means thorn. Kantha was a nymph who Apollo fell in love with, but she didn't return his feelings. So to get back at her, he transformed her into the acanthus, which is a plant with prickly leaves. Not the nicest thing of him to do, but they weren't always that nice back in the Greek myths and legends. I think Acantha would make a very, very standout choice. The next name I have is Cloris. Cloris means pale green. She's a nymph who is associated with spring and flowers. I'm not a huge fan of the name Cloris, but I do love the Roman form of her name. When the Romans took over from the Greeks, they also kind of took over their gods and just gave them Roman names. And so her Roman name was Flora, which I think is very, very pretty and a lot more accessible to English speakers than Cloris. There are several myths where Cloris or Flora transforms people into flowers. Then I have two nymphs who were transformed into fountains. The first one is Castalia. Castalia was a nymph who Apollo transformed into a fountain at Delphi, and those who drank her waters were given the gift of poetry. So again, this could be a way to honor a poetry lover. I think that this name is so beautiful. And then what might be my favorite name on this list is Arethusa. Arethusa just sounds so different. I've never really heard a name that sounds similar to this. This might have to go onto my favorites list. Arethusa means the waterer, and she was a nymph who was pursued by Alpheus until Artemis turned her into a freshwater fountain. And she actually occasionally appears on old ancient coins as a young girl with a net in her hair and dolphins around her head. So I thought that that was a kind of interesting fact about Arethusa. And the last name I have on this list is Xanthi. Xanthi is extra cool because it starts with an X and it means yellow or fair hair. Xanthi was a sea nymph in Greek mythology. She was one of the daughters of Oceanus. So those were some of my favorite names of nymphs from Greek mythology. Let me know in the comments below what your favorite names from Greek mythology are. There is such a diverse selection and such a wealth of names from Greek mythology, and I would love to know what your favorites are. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will talk to you later. Bye.